But this note she gave me at the end, it chokes me up. She said, I believe you changed the trajectory of Bennett's life. His confidence has provided him benefits we may not even know yet. Your kindness, empathy, support, excitement, passion, and love provided that.
Oh,
And I would suggest that the horses also, he fell in love with our pony, and there was an activity that we did that is so fun. I love doing it. I call it horse words. We have 3 hula hoops, and we have balls that have consonants in one pile and vowels in another pile.
today I am thrilled to have Michele Pickel on the program. Michele is a PhD and was a professor at the College of Education at Concordia University, St. Paul for 25 years after teaching children from pre-K to grade 12 for several years. Dr. Pikel is the creator and the director of Horse-Powered Reading, an equine-assisted learning program which engages mind, body, and emotions of struggling readers with horses, using games and activities to help students learn and improve critical reading skills. Since 2012, over 950 horsepower reading facilitators have been trained at all 50 U.S. states and territories and in 24 other countries. And we will put the link of her website in the show notes. And to learn more about it, you can go to their Facebook or horsepoweredreading.com. So welcome to the program, Michele. Sorry, I have a
Thank you.
it's so good to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be able to visit. I always love talking about horse-powered reading and
I'm
kids and learning.
great, great. So, this is so important because, I mean, just from a personal experience, I remember my little girl, she wasn't really, first of all, I hate the labels, right? I mean, I was listening to an interview and it was something about a little boy who was at the 2 percentile. And it's like, I hate that. I hate all of that. That's why my kids went to the Waldorf school, right? But with that said, some kids do struggle. And, it's so important for their confidence and for them to believe in themselves and to set them out on that path, even at that young age. It kind of sets them up in the world for success. So tell us, a little bit about, how did you start the origin of this story?
Well, it started when I was born. I'm convinced I have a couple different chromosomes. I've got the H chromosome, as I like to call it. And and with that H chromosome, it goes on to when you add that H chromosome, and then what I like to tell people is that it blends together all my passions. So I love working with children. I love teaching. I used to teach my animals before I ever got a chance to teach children. And my training as a reading specialist, I've always loved reading. I can never remember not loving reading and books, and a little bit of natural horsemanship. When I went to Pirelli, I remember thinking, oh, I wonder why they're not working with kids, because this you could do the same thing. And then add some EGALA training, which is Equine-Assisted Growth and Learning Association, that talks about metaphors and building those metaphors and externalizing the problems. You take the problems that are inside, put them out on the materials, the partner horses and the toys, and you can shuffle them around, adjust, make changes, and experiment, and then put them back in when you learn some new things. And then you add metaphors into it all, and you come up with horse-powered reading. But the thing that really lit the fuse, I guess you'd say, the final explosion, the big bang, came when I kept hearing my college students, because I taught teachers how to teach reading. So my future teachers in my classroom teaching of literacy would go into their clinical experience and come back and say, we've got this little boy in my class, or little girl, and they're really having trouble with this, and the teacher just doesn't seem to know what to do with them. And I wring my hands and say, we know how to fix that. It's on this page in our textbook, it gives you ideas, and in the back, there are some activities that you can do. And so after so many times of that, it was frustrating because most often these were kids who just didn't learn in the same way. They needed to move, they needed to get engaged, uh, and not just be bored. So that really, I grew up on a farm in Iowa, so my horses, 12 miles out of town, so my horses were my uh, friends and companions. And my little pony we got for Christmas one year, and my dad lifted him into the front porch. I about rolled the legs off that pony until I got a bigger horse when I was in junior high. And just they have been a part of my life continually ever since.
Wow, that's beautiful. It's so true that children, and even if it's not children that are struggling with reading, it's the movement is so important, in education. That is something I really liked about the Waldorf school. They really embraced that. They get the kids
Mhm.
out and in nature and moving, and it just sets the stage for success in so many different ways. I'm at a ranch, a horse sanctuary in Montrose, Colorado, and it's called Meta Horse, and for the metaphors. Yeah, that was
Mhm.
in Quest. I don't know if you've heard of that,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, yeah. So that's kind of what we're doing. So tell us a little bit about one of those moments you'll never forget with a child that you were able to take through the horse-powered reading.
Well, there are so many. When you told me that, I started jotting things
Uh-huh.
down, moments that you'll never forget. Mom's comments from the kid, the parents' comments about the child, where one little boy, and I have it as a part of my when we first talk about it. His mother used to have a blog, and she would write notes about it. And what she said is that he had been bullied by neighborhood kids who called him stupid when he was going to get help for tutoring in the summertime. And so he was bullied, and they called him stupid and constantly challenged him. And then the this that was part of the reason that he didn't like going to regular tutoring, because the others would see him go and he knew that he was going. And she said, you and your horses and your time with him have been a shining of his armor. He feels good about going to your place, and the lessons you've taught him are lessons for him to process, not just for reading, but for the road ahead. But you already know that, don't you? And when I got that, that was
Uh,
just gave me chills. And then more recently, uh, when you mentioned somebody starting at 2% and how awful that was, well, the reality of our schools currently is the teachers are trying to get a handle on where the kids are challenged. I personally think there's a whole lot of better ways to find out where they are and what they need. But currently, they're doing assessments of varying kinds. And after the fourth or fifth week, when he was coming out to my house, and again, it's the end of his kindergarten year, and they were really concerned about him. I got the impression they didn't think he really even knew all of his alphabet. Well, they said the email that she sent me showed what the teacher had given them, that he had started out at the second percentile. And after 4 weeks, they just happened to be doing the next testing level. And already at that point, it had jumped to 58 percentile. So he was on target for his classroom, ahead of the game in phonics and phonemic awareness. But this note she gave me at the end, it chokes me up. She said, I believe you changed the trajectory of Bennett's life. His confidence has provided him benefits we may not even know yet. Your kindness, empathy, support, excitement, passion, and love provided that.
oh,
And I would suggest that the horses also, he fell in love with our pony, and there was an activity that we did that was is so fun. I love doing it. I call it horse words. We have three hula hoops and we have balls that have consonants in one pile and vowels in another pile. And the horse or the pony has to choose whichever consonant they touch first goes in the first hoop, whichever, then they have to go to the vowels. Whichever vowel they touch goes in the second hoop, and the third hoop is another consonant. Consonant, vowel, consonant. They practice blending those together and figuring out what the word is. But if it isn't a human word, if it's not an English word that they recognize, then we call it a horse word. It must be something from the horse
I
language.
love
So
that.
we have two columns on a chart where we write the people words and the horse words. And with this little guy, he said, I said, you need to ask Pixie what the word means. And he looked at me really funny, and I said, well, just put your ear up to her head, and it's kind of like you'll hear from inside her brain. She's going to let you know what that word means. And he did it. He asked her so politely, what does whatever the word spelling was, and he put his head there. And then just as he turned to look at me, kind of puzzled, she nudged him and she started pawing the ground. And he said, oh, it means dig. And
Oh,
just his insights and he blossomed when he was working with the horses. We played so many different games to help him learn the word families like the IGHT, and you add different beginning sounds on it. And then we sorted them into word herds. We made a little pen for the IGHT and a pen for the AT words. And you play. They don't
yeah.
even know they're learning.
Wow. That just really warms my heart. And we talk a lot when I work with horses and children, listening, of course, putting your head up and depending on the child and this and that, but listening from your heart, what is the horse's heart telling you? But the fact that the horse started pawing, there was this communication going on, which is so incredibly beautiful. So let's talk about what is it about the horse?
I think the fact that the horse becomes a mirror of sorts. And anybody who has horses or has been around horses knows that they're going to reflect whatever mood you're in. And the wonderful part, the whole idea of the horse math, the heart math, excuse me, they've discovered that within about a 4 foot radius of the horse, your heart will begin to match up. And with our children, I think the horses, they well, our horses and most people, when they start doing horse-powered reading, they love the children. They react to the children in these calm, caring ways. Sometimes when there's a reason for it, when the child or even the adult is off some way, you can see it in the horse. It reflects back. I always call it an academic X-ray because the way the things that the child, and so we'll just talk about kids, even though adults, struggling readers, or second language people also, and even elderly people with memory issues have benefited from horse-powered reading. But with the children, they begin to relax when they're around the horses and focus. Because when you're around 1,000-pound horse or even a 500-pound pony, you have to pay attention. And we have a nice, cushy, soft arena and with lots of sand. And one little girl wasn't paying much attention. She was just all off kilter. And my gray mare, my earrings mare, she almost looked intentional. She reached one hoof out and just pushed on her foot, was standing on the little girl's foot. Now, her grandmother is a colleague of mine and brought the children out. And the look on the little girl's face was like, And I could tell it wasn't like terrible pain. It was more like the shock of the whole thing.
Right.
And I said, wow, what's that all about? I don't know. Well, what are you going to do? She thought about it a minute and pretty soon she leaned into the horse and she stepped off. Well, what was she saying? Well, I guess I wasn't paying attention, which just happened to be one of her biggest problems in school. She wasn't paying attention when the teacher talked, and so to get to get her attention. Now, who knows? I'm I'm anthropomorphizing the horse, I'm afraid, by saying that they really knew that, but she got the child's attention. And I could see grandma back in the background going, "Oh, should I intervene?" But it was a very controlled kind of thing.
Right.
So
Well, I've seen that over and over, and I do believe it's for listeners that are kind of like, oh, really? You've got to see it to believe it. The healing aspects of the horse, and the horse does know what's going on with you. And so I do believe that little nudge, if you will, or that little step, and also that the little girl responded in the manner that she was supposed to. There's this whole communication going on without words, and that's the beauty of it. And I do really love the resonating of heart rates, or how children, I mean, they're not being judged, they're not being, you know, overly committed. They're just there with this, loving animal. So it leaves all the doors open. So I was reading on your site about the Reading River. Can you tell us what that is and tell us a little bit about it?
it's funny because that's just the child I was thinking about when you were talking about the horse being so gentle, and with the children. We had the cutest, she was adorable little kindergartner, again, a little girl, and she didn't want the pony. She wanted my Arab. And he's my baby, but so funny because he has a mind of his own. And she was just like a fly on him, just that small compared to him. Her
Right.
head came up to his chest. And so she's the Reading River. We use it for a variety of different things. One of the most powerful things, forms of assessment, is when the child puts different obstacles in the pathway. They build this pathway to their goal of becoming a great reader, and they put different obstacles in. An example is a third grader we had, and just well-to-do family and obviously not undernourished, but on one of the obstacles, she labeled it hungry. We were mystified when we saw that. And so we said, Caroline, what do you mean hungry? Well, reading is right before lunch. And every time I can smell the lunch coming down the hall, the smell, and I just can't concentrate. Well, that
Oh,
was the easiest problem we probably ever had because all her mom did was start sending a snack and it was fine. But back to the kindergartner, we knew that there were some problems with alphabet. So we put the alphabet in the pathway, and we usually have the child put those in. And the deal with the road to reading is that the person, the human, and their reading buddy, the four-legged reading buddy, have to stay within the path. It's like when you're reading, you've got to stay focused, so you've got to stay in the path. And if either one of you steps out of the path, then you have to go back to the beginning. So when they started out, she'd get the first couple letters, and you could see that she just wasn't getting it. And so she would step out intentionally. You could see it and go back.
oh,
And then she'd nudge the horse to go back. Well, after a little while, this particular horse, he's like, I think I'm done. And so he just started walking toward the gate, and she's hanging on. He's pulling her across the
right,
arena,
right.
going with him. And it was really interesting
Oh,
because things at school, you could just see that's exactly how things are in school. They're just moving right along without her
right.
and or dragging her along. She but she was adamant that this was what her partner was going to be. So they don't always interact. And in fact, we have professional development days with teachers that will come out, and I divided them into the early childhood group and primary and upper grades. And we had the preschool, the very youngest teachers for the youngest children were working with one of the horses. And this particular horse is so perceptive. He's cow horse. He's very perceptive. But the person they chose to lead him, Flynn is his name, the person that was leading Flynn was nervous, you could tell.
Mm.
And Flynn was behind her, nipping at her jacket, like pushing her along and nipping at it. And she got very upset. Afterwards, I talked to the principal and I said, is she in an abusive relationship by any chance? Because she didn't do anything to stop him. She didn't step aside. She just kind of took it and didn't work to solve the problem. So it was very powerful. And this is the same horse that another time when we had students from a college. They were going to be parole officers, is what they were studying for. And the road to reading and then became the road to recovery. And one of the props was a big exercise ball that looked like a giant peanut, and it said drugs on it. And he grabbed that ball and just was going crazy on it. And the conversation that comes up, you think, how do they do this? Or another group from a rehab place who one of the horses turned over an obstacle, and I didn't even realize there were any words that had been put on there previously, but it said abuse. The woman just had this shocking look on her face because that was exactly what was a big factor in her addiction. So
Gosh,
it almost looks magical.
right.
People will ask me again and again when the horse picks a particular ball or a particular obstacle and shows extra interest in it. I read the word and ask the student, well, what's that all about? There's so many times that you think there's no way that horse knows what it says. But parents will say, how did you teach that horse to read? That's not what horse-powered reading means.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the perception, and I think the other really big thing is it loosens up your brain, your consciousness to be able to play with those metaphors. And the
Mhm.
metaphors are really where the magic happened. What's that look like in school? Like another road to reading, the little boy whose mom said this was a polishing of his armor. As he built his road to reading, he made little exit ramps off the sides. And it was funny to look at. And I said, what's that all about? Well, he might get to a place where he just needs a break. And so this way he can leave and take a break. He's telling us what he needs at school.
Oh, wow.
Or
That,
when he said that he couldn't read a word on one of the balls because it's moving. The word's moving. And I thought, well, the ball was rolling away. Later, his mom said, have you noticed anything with his vision? Because the words wiggling around. And I'm like, yes.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it really was a neurological piece that came out as a result of this.
Mhm. Oh, those are just such great stories. Just such important stuff. So people, if a parent is listening to this and it's like, gosh, I want to know more about this. I want to get my child involved. Maybe they live in the city, they're not like around horses. I mean, how does someone like that be able to benefit from your program?
couple of different ways. First of all, on our website, the horsepoweredreading.com, and it's powered with an ED on it. The
Yes.
horsepoweredreading.com, we have a page that's called Find a Program. So you can go to whatever state or country you're in, because we're in 24 different countries. We've
Mm.
had people who've been trained to do horse-powered reading. And and I actually have some parents and grandparents who it's an online course, and you can even do it asynchronously to learn how to work with your own child. I had one gal who was working with her nephew on the practice sessions because there are four classes. The first two are teaching you about the reading and then about the other pieces, the motivation, the self-efficacy, and the persistence through challenges, which are a part of what the horses bring to it that are so powerful. And and then by the class 3 and 4, you're doing two sessions, two activities from the curriculum with a volunteer client. And this gal chose her nephew and started working with him, and he was reading. He's fourth grader reading at about a first grade level at that point in the fall. About By the end of the school year, she kept working with him every week. By the end of the school year, he was up to fourth grade level. He had moved up to grade level. So it was remarkable. But again, that's a family thing. And we've got grandmothers that will do the class to learn how to do it. And sometimes then neighbor kids, or can work with homeschooling groups, and just because it's fun. If you're
Right,
not having
right,
fun, the kids are.
exactly.
We play games with the horses, and it is fun for the facilitator. And I never am finished with a session with a child that I don't walk away with my heart just
Oh,
swollen from the joy and the wow that I've seen,
yeah.
the connection that they make with that horse.
So when the parents or the grandmother or grandparents or whomever like take the course and they don't have really any experience with horses, what do they do? Do they find a place with a horse and a horse handler, or how does that part of it work? You have to have a horse to do this, right?
Well, the curriculum, horse-powered reading, because I know a lot of my college students, I kind of tried out a lot of the metaphors and a lot of activities out with them. And the way the curriculum is set up is there are activities that you do with horses in the arena, and then they're followed by, like, in each area, decoding, let's say that's sounding out words and sight words, phonics, basically. There are at least 2 to 4 activities in the arena with horses, followed by classroom activities. The
Okay,
idea being that if somebody doesn't have horses, you can do experiential reading activities
got it.
using these activities in a classroom, on the playground, outside, at home. Um, and so, and some people, because we've got people in the frozen north that take the class in the winter and the weather often gets in the way. And so they will use toy horses in the house and do activities with
That's interesting.
the curriculum. And the gal in one of our facilitators who lives in Iceland, it was so fun. In Iceland, this little tidbit of information, they have only Icelandic horses are allowed on in the country of Iceland. And she was in an island off the coast, and in the worst of the winter, those horses were moved to that main island for the winter. So here she is, a special ed teacher, was learning how to do horsepower reading and wanted to use it. One of the grandparent or parent of one of the students made little toy horses, wooden horses for each of the children, and they decorated, they named them, and they worked with them doing the activities that you would normally do with the horses in their classroom. And then she got one of these, they call it equicizer in the PATH program, the therapeutic riding program, where people get on this, it looks like, I think of a toy horse that a kid has that they're
Right,
bouncing
right.
on when they're little. But they can use that and they're toy horses, and they do all that. They do word herds. They play all the games that we do with the horses. And then in the spring, when the horses come back, then they go out and they do
Right.
things with the horses. So if somebody doesn't have easy access and can't recruit a friend who might have a horse or a pony, you still can help your child using
Yeah.
the reading activities when you understand how it puts together.
Right. That's interesting because obviously the live horse itself, of course, brings so much to the program. But if you don't
Mhm.
have, so you're going to miss out on that a little bit.
Mhm.
But at least you're still helping helping the child. Yeah,
And that's where I want to change education to make it more engaging and active,
yeah,
and not just open the lid and pour it in. The
yeah,
horses are the ultimate. That really is powerful. But there's a lot you could do with pictures and
yeah,
toy horses and such too.
yeah. Wonderful. So to segue a little bit, I know that you wrote a beautiful bedtime book called Sleepy Time. And how does that connect with your work in the horse-powered reading?
Secrets of Sleepy Time. Everything I do connects with horse-powered reading in my life, because it just is um, it's taken on a life of its own, I have to say. But with The Secrets of Sleepy Time, I actually created that poem for my daughter when she was only 2 years old. And she couldn't, we were in a camping setting when she wouldn't go to sleep. And so the opening line is, "Listen, my child, and you will hear the secrets of sleepy time night and the quiet creatures and soothing sounds." So in this tent, I'm going, "Shh, shh, listen, listen, do you hear? Quiet creatures." And so the poem evolved from that. But she's 42 now, or 41. And so it was when my grandchildren chided their father for not saying the right words when he was telling him the bedtime poem, because when they come over to grandma's, we do the bedtime poem. So I got horsepower reading facilitator who's also an artist, who did paintings for the book, and another facilitator, someone connected with horsepower reading, who did the layout. And then it really is a bedtime story, a soothing bedtime story, because so many kids have fearful nighttime. Their nighttime routine, um, the monster under the bed kind of thing. And so this talks about the Father of Light from above with his Son and the Spirit. He'll stay by your bed, soothing fear, shooing fear from your night with his love. And then there's actions that go with it. So what I did, I thought, okay, I need something, when another book that we had been using that was authored in Oman by one of our facilitators in the country of Oman, um, she was not printing them anymore. So I thought, well, we'll just use Secrets of Sleepy Time. And what I did is I created phonemic awareness activities to go with that particular book. So before for pre-readers, preschoolers, kids that haven't learned how to read, they need these foundational skills to be able to hear the things that are different and the same, and the pacing and the rhythm. And so with Secrets of Sleepy Time, I simply made 4 or 5 pages of activities to go with that.
Nice.
And of course, it's just a really fun bedtime story as well.
Yeah, yeah, wow. Well, you are doing amazing work, and I'm looking forward to taking the course beginning in September. And how do people, like, after they take the course, find, like find a place to actually do the work?
A lot of the people have connections in some way ahead of time. Because word of mouth, it's spread so much. 950 people have been trained. But what I like to remind even the people that are taking the class or considering it, This gives you one more tool in your toolbox to help children, because my life mission is to make an impact on the lives of children, to help kids, in particular, the struggling readers, the children that are struggling academically. And I early on, I decided, okay, I could teach one grade once a year. I could have that class. I taught kindergarten for a few years, and I can impact these 25 kindergartners. Or I could be a principal, because part of my PhD is administration, but then I could reach one school, or a superintendent and reach a community. But as a professor in the College of Education, I can touch all of these college students who are going to be teachers. But then it jumped to the next level. I was working with the after school program, having my college students work with largely immigrant population, the children in an after school program. We designed active learning activities to go with what they were doing after school. And it was an easy move to go from college students to people who loved children and wanted to help children. Because if I've got a 20-something-year-old college student and consider somebody a mature person, even a grandma or a parent, or somebody, a graduate of college, who wants to help kids, who knows too many kids are falling through the cracks, who shouldn't be, because we can help them, they're motivated, highly motivated.
Yes.
So I basically took the things that I had been practicing and learning all the way through. Even my dissertation was developing influential children through the use of motivational literacy strategies. So I started working with kids, impacting kids. And that's what we do for the summer program. I have older students with younger students, and they, peer mentoring kind of.
Mhm.
So it has just evolved over time. And I don't see one of my professors used to say, children are like the plankton of the sea. They think about the whale that lives on plankton, and they're just these little teeny tiny creatures. And imagine the impact that the little teeny tiny kids in our schools can have. And I'm taking it to the next level. What about the parents and the caring adults that never went to college to learn how to be a teacher? I give them the basics, the basic critical skills that make the biggest impact on the shortest amount of time. And we're not teaching, we're leaving the teaching to the school, to the teachers, the trained teachers. Now, if you are, then some people have used horsepower reading as their own mini school. You've seen the Little Red Schoolhouse or some variation of that. And that's a great way to, an early childhood center had a round pen right next to their building, and they actually are connected. So we've got that scattered around the country. But to be able to now train an army of people with these basic skills, we don't have to do battle with the reading wars anymore.
Right.
These are the skills they need that are going to make the biggest difference, and then it'll supplement and enrich what they're learning from school. And one little girl, this is one of them that her grandma brought her, and on the way home she said, when we played a magic E game, because those CVC words, consonant, vowel, consonant words, they're usually a short vowel, like can or hop. But when you add a magic E to the end of that word, it makes the vowel say its name. It makes it long. So then we've got cane and hope. Well, the little girl said, my teacher kept talking about the E's at the end of the word, and I never could figure out why that was a big deal or what that was all about. Now it made sense, because we play games with that, where the horse becomes the magic E, and when you walk past this CVC word, it turns to a long vowel word. So we
Wow.
have lots of fun.
Well, I can just hear the passion in your voice as you talk about this beautiful program. Well, we need to wrap it up, but thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to share?
You know what? I think I've talked about everything. I just the last question you said is, what's my personal hope for the next chapter? Where's horsepower going? We're 13 years old now, and where's it going from here? And my honest desire is to change education, to impact so many people that they can't ignore it anymore. And ultimately, wouldn't it be great if every school had access to horses for
Gosh,
those kids that need that extra help? So we're trying to continue to research this to give it a leg up with the systems
yes,
that need more proof, if you will, and also preparing for succession because, something happens to me, it's going to keep going because we've got a lot of people that know how to do it.
yeah. Uh, well, you are certainly an earthly angel, and thank you for caring so much, not only about the children, but for, everyone who needs help in all of these areas, which we all do, right? But I just love the work you're doing. I'm looking forward to learning all about it and doing some of my own work. So thank you. That ripple effect is huge.
Thanks for allowing me to share. It's
Absolutely.
great joy in my heart.
Thanks. So, Michelle, if people want to find you and find out more about your program, how would they go about doing that?
Go to the website. There's an email on the website. Um, I'm pretty free with my phone number too. So,
I am too.
but I don't know if you want, if that's a little too much, but just go to the website, you'll find me, or Google horse powered reading, and it will take you either to one of our programs who will take you, and any other websites that talk about horse powered reading will steer you to the website where you can get more information. And from there, get a hold of me and I'll give you a call right back.
Great. Well, thank you so, so much. And give all those horses a big hug from me.
I will. They're pretty great teachers.
Yeah. And so thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Marla.
Bye-bye.